Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sam Kingery Show, the show where we talk about everything happening in sports. I got Mike Cooper with me. Mike, it's great to see you. It's great to record with you. We got basically five big things to headline the day. We just had a crazy trade deadline where we seem like we're inching closer towards a lockout next season. We'll get into that. We have USA soccer news. We have football. We had just had our first preseason game. We have a couple ball stories. So we're going to get through it all. And we're really excited to have you. I'm very excited to talk to you, my man. What's up?
What's up, dude? There's just been a lot of stuff going on in the last couple of days, and I'm really glad football's back.
I'm very glad football is long, long journey back. We've had, beginning of August where it starts becoming really real, getting to the peak of sports again really soon. So I wanted to talk about some USA soccer news because this is a podcast that does do a lot of USA soccer. Because I believe that when you report on sports from a particular country, as we do, the United States, you should also follow the national team, their soccer team. So the U.S. men's national team has re-signed for a 4-year cycle Mauricio Pochettino, the Argentine manager, formerly of clubs such as PSG, Chelsea, took Tottenham to a Champions League final. Great coach. He did really, really well in the World Cup. The last game is still a scar. It was still pretty bad, but he definitely showed and changed the way that we played and we looked and we've ever looked at a soccer tournament, especially in the modern era. So, very excited to have Pochettino back. Very excited to see how he develops over the cycle and develops this team and continues to put his mentality and more forge his mentality into these players and has a full year cycle where he knows he's the coach and he knows that he has a World Cup in 4 years where he can take these guys who are in their primes, who are getting a little older, and give them that core group of guys one last run and meld some of the new young exciting prospects into them. So I'm very excited for him to be back. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's great for the team. It's great for the cycle, and I think that, like you said, that loss to Belgium really left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But it's going to be interesting to see knowing what he did in a year and a half, how far he can take this with a 4-year full cycle.
Absolutely. I think the results on the field and how we played whenever we needed to until the Belgium game showed a lot of things, and I'm not too worried about that. My main concern is he has not been super interested in recruiting, which is something that the former coach, who I'm not a fan of, I didn't style of play on the field nor his coaching mannerisms. Greg Berhalter, Triple G. He actually was a really good recruiter and understood that for the USA program, not only do we need to have our talent that we've developed in this country and guys that are Americans, be on this team. But he also knew that we needed to recruit um, players, guys like Serginho Dest and Yunus Musa and Anthony Robinson to know that the USA wanted them. And Pochettino has not seemed to be interested in that. Now, to be fair, he was working on it with only a year and a half and integrating in a team and truly know. This is something I would like to see did in the last cycle, the last 2 years he had, which is I hope he does go for that dual national recruitment.
I think he's probably going
Um,
to hit that hard. You have to
and I
think
really
that
hope that
with
he
his
does.
and we dropped. It's okay. But I think what Sam was going at was I hope that, he really hits the dual citizenship cycle hard. I hope that he hits the I was kind of filling in what you were saying, Sam, before you hopped up, before you dropped.
Ah, of course.
I was just
I
saying,
don't
yeah,
know how much of it got, but basically, he
I was just saying that you were just looking for, maybe with the year and a half, you didn't have a big chance to hit the cycle, but now with a 4-year full cycle. I'm sure the recruitment and what he's done has not been unnoticed, and he's going to be able to get guys to commit to guys who maybe were on the fringe of playing for the United States or a different country. And, if he can get these guys to commit early and build the momentum and the cohesion between the roster. And I guess, the big injury bug, keeping Pulisic healthy and building pieces around. I think you build this team around Ball again more than you do Pulisic, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, no,
but you have
and I
to,
think there's a
to,
couple of young
but,
guys that could end up.
yeah, I agree.
You have to have some young guys that are going to be impactful as well. That I'm sure are going to arrive. And you have to still continue to find those dual nationals that everyone might not know, might not realize that do have an American passport or do have an American lineage. You got to take those guys into it if they're talented enough, because you know guys like Nathaniel Brown, who started for Germany in this World Cup, if we could have gotten him, the German American center back for Augsburg, if he wants to play for Germany, we need to tell him that that's going to be a tough road, but he might have a home with us. So I hope that Poch will do that, in addition to doing what he's done so far. But in terms of play on the field, the style of play, and what he wants this team to do, I'm confident in it, and I think it's good. I just hope he also has a habit of wearing teams out, but as a national team coach, you don't have enough time and practices to wear guys out the way he's kind of like I've mentioned before, a little bit Tibbs-ish, where he runs guys really hard, and definitely can be a detriment. But this isn't a club team; only has 15 to 20 practices with them a year, so I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, it's getting the guys to commit and buy into his system and how quickly you can implement that system. Be interested too, because I know that you mentioned that they had a couple of good players that were injured that probably would have really helped this roster. So seeing how they fit in under Pochettino's system and seeing how they fit in going into the next cycle is going to be interesting to watch as well.
Absolutely, I agree. So, trying to connect to a different Wi-Fi, but that's okay. Um, let's talk a bombshell in basketball that dropped today. Pablo Torres podcast, which he does a very interesting form of sports journalism where it's like investigative. He dropped a fact that alleged fact that Kawhi Leonard has taken over $100 million in payments from outside sources. Uh, Apparently, the scoreboard company that worked at the Clippers Stadium. This is a jarring bombshell. We knew Kawhi Leonard had some financial. Him and Steve Ballmer had some financial misdeeds possibly being brought up. That's one of the reasons why his move to the Raptors has not been finalized. It's starting to look really bad for Kawhi Leonard and Steve Ballmer. And I don't know what exactly the future is going to be for the Clippers under Steve Ballmer and Kawhi Leonard's future on the basketball court. What do you think?
I don't know how Ballmer Ballmer stays an owner longer than maybe another year or so if this continues to come out, and I don't know if Kawhi Leonard will ever play in the NBA again. I mean, it's just
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird to think about something like that because
I mean, when the crazy thing about, like, we were talking about it off camera, but like the crazy thing about this is if it were like you mentioned, I mean, I know you'll get into it, but you piggybacked it to like college football basically before NIL. But it the crazy thing is he's doing all this cap, whatever circumvention
Mhm.
to keep a star player, and they didn't win. Like they didn't. I mean, other than like I think you said like the bubble, I don't even think they really got past the first round, let alone had Kawhi healthy at all during this whole tenure. So what was really going on with Kawhi, and why did he feel he needed to do this with Kawhi? Which also is that why Kawhi also maybe didn't have the team and pieces around him to get to that next level because Ballmer really didn't have the money to pay these guys. It's interesting to kind of look back at, the history of it and what's going to happen with Kawhi's future. And I'm surprised it took him this long to
Yeah,
finally dig it up. I mean, who tipped off the league other than maybe Pablo Torre of what was actually going on?
yeah, yeah. We're gonna, and it's all eventually gonna come out. And that's another interesting about it with the rise of technology and social media and everything. All this stuff has a paper trail. All of this stuff we can audit. We know about. He's one of the top 5%, 3% of American, income earners. The IRS knows about these things. Like these things are discoverable, and for him to risk his career and Steve Ballmer to do this is just a really odd choice. And either it's a one-off and it's just this has happened and which is still crazy, or this is a watershed moment where we learn that this is more of a common thing in sports than we realize. But I don't really see how that's possible. And yeah, you mentioned what I talked about with like it's not like college football 10 years ago where Alabama really wanted a cornerback, so they offered, so a local, you know, Chevy dealership gave a kid a new Tahoe, or paid him under the table. And it's not like Messi coming to the MLS where it's just like it's such a big acquisition for the league that the league's willing to give up an exorbitant amount of money and offer a franchise in the future. It's an NBA All-Star on a max contract, just wanting more, just getting more, and it just is wild to think about.
Yeah, and it's like, like you kind of mentioned it when we were talking about it before, like LeBron, getting all these endorsement deals by going to LA, but it's LeBron James. He should be able to get these endorsement deals anywhere. It's not like it's like the Clippers
Mhm,
didn't really have a history of star players until they had Chris Paul and Blake
mhm.
Griffin and all of those guys. And now it's like now you have now it's under a different ownership. So now you have new ownership and the way that he wants to win, he's doing it this way, but it still hasn't been enough for them to even win. And it got brought to light 7 years after Kawhi Leonard signed with the Clippers originally. Why is it coming out at the end of his tenure? Why was this never talked about at the beginning of his tenure? And it's questions that I think a lot of NBA fans are going to ask that are
Mhm.
probably never going to
Yeah.
get answered. And it's going to be one of those things that Kawhi was probably a border. I'm not afraid to say it. Probably a borderline Hall of Fame caliber player, but that's probably long gone
I don't
at
even know
this
about
point.
borderline. Yeah, I think this kind of thing is something that possibly kills it
Because I mean,
because,
if you
I
want to
mean,
compare it, it's like you can't
like,
really compare. You can
I mean,
compare it to Shohei. You can compare it to Shohei, but it's not the same. Is it like more like a Pete Rose thing? But that's also gambling and
it's
betting
not.
against your team and on your team. But
Even
it's not like that either.
Yeah, no, it's not like a gambling addiction or even gambling at all where you're betting on something. It's just it appears he wanted more money and Steve Ballmer found a way to get him more money in order. I don't know if that was the original deal when he came to the Clippers or if that's just something that developed over time. But this is just like fraud. This is just like
Yeah,
salary fraud.
it's like, and it's plain as day too. So it's like if you're an NBA owner, how does Ballmer make it through this? He'll make it through probably till the end of the investigation, and probably get voted out by the ownership and the owner board in the NBA. But it's like if you're another owner, one, if you're doing this, you're very, very worried, and two, what are you trying to hide? And now that's probably a question that he's gonna have to answer to other owners as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is just all of it's unacceptable. It's just completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and I mean, no, and it's crazy to think overall, like with I mean, you can go back for probably 15 years now, just everything that's happened with the Clippers from the Lakers getting the Chris Paul trade vetoed to all of a sudden he's going to the Clippers to that owner losing ownership for, using inappropriate language to now the new
Yeah.
owner comes in and they get all of a sudden they get Kawhi Leonard and they dump their Showtime, basically, Lob City to get, Kawhi Leonard. And what did Paul George get? They mortgaged their future to get Paul George, which probably hurt Kawhi in the long run. But,
Mhm.
what did Paul George get on the side too? Because clearly
Yeah.
he wasn't just getting, just what he was being paid as well.
Yeah.
There had to be more enticing things for him to get.
Possibly. I mean, it seems like it would be likely. I mean, it's just watered, but away, it's just Kane's choice. I don't know. It's greedy, and we're gonna figure out what's going on. But there's gonna be real repercussions for this, and it is just crazy to think about. In the kind of other fun NBA news, I don't know if you saw this. Did you see LaMelo Ball's apartment in Charlotte?
No.
There was a video that came out of LaMelo Ball's apartment in Charlotte, and everyone was commenting that it looks like a vape shop in there. It was just covered with like galaxy like wallpaper and weird aliens and stuff. It's exactly what you think if you give a 13-year-old boy, $400 million.
This article that SB Nation titled it says looks like Dave and Bussard had a baby with Hot Topic.
Yeah. It was very, very funny. But God, do I love LaMelo Ball. He tickles me to no end.
Did you see what his dad said? Yes, I forget. I saw the video clip. He goes, if Jello didn't get arrested at UCLA, LaMelo was going to UCLA, and Jello would have been a top 5 pick, and then UCLA would have had LaMelo for a year or two, and he would have been top 5 pick. I was like, okay, Jello's not that good. Okay, like we all know, everybody knows it. And if he was really that good, he would have stuck somewhere in the NBA.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to say when it's very clearly Jello wasn't that good, but
And it's okay too. It's like, and the whole thing that used to bother me about the LaVar thing was like, he was never, I get it. You want all 3 of the kids to play in the NBA, and I love that for him. And I love that he gave them the opportunity to do so, and having 2 of them be top 5. What I was saying was, what I love about, like, I respect LaVar Ball because he pushed his kids to get to the NBA. He had 2 kids top 5.
Yeah.
Jello may have been a 2nd round pick, maybe a late first if he doesn't get arrested, if he can actually play. But people,
and all things
like,
considered, he seems like a great dad.
Yeah, and but the Holidays were the first one to do it. Justin, and then the other one with Aaron, and then Drew. Like
Drew.
Yeah, like, you weren't original doing this. You were the first. They were the first ones to have 3 brothers playing in the NBA.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's not like they're original. But that's crazy. I can't believe LaVar Ball came up in the year of our Lord 2026, but I guess he still is relevant in some way. Moving on from that basketball news, quick little football. Preseason's here. We had our first preseason game tonight. Both quarterbacks, both the young quarterbacks didn't look too bad.
I thought Carson Beck played a great game, and Haynes King, I thought, he's played a typical Haynes King game.
Yeah, but I think he showed that. I don't know if he's ever going to be a true starter or like a franchise guy, but he showed that he has ability. He had poise in the pocket. He delivered throws on time in good places. He was smart with the ball, and he ran when he needed to and showed off his legs when he needed to. I don't see any reason why he can't get that number 2 spot. He's competing with Kenny Pickett for that number 2 spot for the Panthers, and I think he showed enough. If we'll see how it develops over the preseason, but like he didn't play too bad by any means, and neither did Carson Beck. So, and we had a game go down to the wire for the first preseason game. Football's coming back. You feel it in the air. It's very exciting. It's a very exciting time of year.
Today's the last. Starting today, you have football on a Thursday, whether it's NFL or college, for like 22 straight weeks.
Isn't that just beautiful? We are getting to late, clearly, in the football sports cycle, where football hasn't happened yet, but people need to find ways. They're going through their power rankings. Everyone's releasing all their power rankings. Everyone's releasing their takes. Everyone is
Coaches
Joel Klatt put out.
coaches polls are coming out too.
Yep, coaches poll. We'll talk about coaches poll in just a second. Joel Klatt put out his team of this century so far, which very fun topic. It was interesting to listen to. It wasn't like a bad watch or a bad listen by any means, but still like clearly like we're fishing for things to do while waiting. Everyone's getting a little antsy. We did get a coaches poll. The preseason coaches poll did come out. And we have it. Number one is Ohio State Buckeyes, correct?
Yep, that is correct.
I didn't have too many problems with the coaches poll. There were the typical complaints. Too many SEC teams, too many teams undervalued. It was a little weird to see Indiana down at
They were 6.
down at 6, but they did lose significant pieces, but they didn't lose everybody. And that coaching staff has proven time and time again that you shouldn't underrate them. So a little weird to see them, but I don't think any of this is crazy. Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Indiana, Miami, Texas A&M, little high. We have 4 SEC teams here: A&M, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Alabama. I think those teams all have potential, but they all have potential to slide significantly too.
Yeah, and I think when you get into the nitty-gritty, you have BYU with a lot of question marks around them. Michigan, how are they going to be under Kyle Whittingham? Penn State with a brand new coaching staff comes in at 17. Tennessee starting a freshman quarterback. The funny thing about that is their quarterback, I can't remember his name. He went 35-1 in high school. The last 2 quarterbacks to win 30 or more games in high school to start for Tennessee were Hendon Hooker and Peyton Manning. So you have a very broad spectrum, I would say, of how that could go.
Yes. Indeed.
So, but you never know how that kind of goes, because it could kind of go how Michigan went last year with Bryce Underwood and the hype around how he had it. Then you have Washington, who, the Desmond Williams issue of him transferring, then staying. Then SMU is back in the top 20. SMU returns Kevin Jennings at quarterback. They're expected to be a contender in the ACC. Putting Clemson down at 23 is very interesting. That hype train has really fallen off for Dabo. Especially with NIL, they haven't been the same power that they were.
No.
Let's see how they do. Then you have Houston.
Yeah.
Houston getting respect at 24, and then your Missouri Tigers coming in at 25.
Yes, sir. I want to talk about this quad of SEC teams really quick. A&M had an easier schedule last year. I don't know if they're going to be able to truly replicate how they did last year. Oklahoma's kind of boom or bust for me, where they have a really good defense. It kind of feels like Miami last year, where if they do get into the playoff and they have those game records up front, that they could take it pretty far, because they could just, in a one-off game, ruin a game plan for the opposing team. But they also still have a lot of questions on their offense, and can John Mateer really be the guy? Can he be the guy that we saw in the first half of the season last year, or is he going to be the guy that we saw in the second half?
I think the biggest question of John Mateer is if he can stay healthy or not. You can definitely tell
I think that's also true.
When he was healthy, he was good. When he tried to play through injury, he was really bad. And
I would also question many of his decision-making moments over the season, even when he was healthy too. Can he be more poised as well? Because this team doesn't need him to be Joe Burrow. This team needs him to be
Sam Bradford,
not a turnover.
I know this is a bad comparison.
Safe.
I was gonna say it's not maybe the best comparison, but they need him to be like because it's an Oklahoma comparison, like a Jason White, Sam Bradford. They don't need you to be Joe Burrow. They don't need you to try to take over a game. Be a good game manager who can take over and win a game. You don't need him like, if you even want to use Oklahoma comparison, you don't need him to be Kyler Murray or Baker Mayfield.
No.
Like, just
you don't.
Be a good game manager, be a good play under control, and you'll be able to take them to where they want to go. You mentioned A&M schedule. They have ASU at LSU. They have at Missouri. They have at Bama. They have at South Carolina. They have at Oklahoma. Like, their schedule is not easy. Not
And the schedule last year was much easier than it was this year. So are we going to see a regression there? Ole Miss, Pete Golding's first year as head coach, Lane Kiffin really brought up that program. I think it's easier recency bias to remember Ole Miss as the Lane Kiffin Ole Miss. Ole Miss of old wasn't able to get it done often.
I think all the hype
And
around Ole Miss is on Lacey and is on Trinidad Chambliss.
which they're going to be a very dynamic running back quarterback duo. I don't really have too much concerns about them. It's just going to be Pete Golden and that coaching staff over a whole season. How are they going to perform? And then Alabama, Kalen DeBoer has a lot of pressure on him. He's brought his style of football to the SEC, which I don't know if it really has worked. And they certainly aren't the team they were under Saban. So this is another team that could easily fall out of the rankings. Texas Tech loses their quarterback. I know they're not an SEC team. They're not part of that quad I wanted to talk about, but what's going to happen with them?
I mean, how
Are they?
and even right below that, you have USC, who's is Lincoln on a hot seat. I mean, their schedule's not easy either. They got Oregon, they got Penn State, they have Ohio State, Indiana. Like, I mean, their schedule's not hard. They don't play Notre Dame. They have a bunch of cupcakes open the season with San Jose, Fresno, Louisiana Lafayette, or Louisiana, then Rutgers open the year. Then you go through a little, I don't know if you want to call it a gauntlet stretch, but their toughest stretch of their season. They play Oregon and Washington. Then they go to Penn State and Wisconsin, which are two hard places to play. You come back and you play Ohio State in LA, and then you have to go to Indiana. Like, that's not there's going to be a lot of hype if they start this season 5-0, but then they could easily regress to be 5-5 out of the polls with Lincoln Riley getting left on the tarmac like Lane Kiffin did.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you got like number 22 Iowa. It's going to be the same age-old question with Iowa this year. Can they score points? I'm sure their defense will be solid. I'm sure their lines will be good. But can they score points? Can they have a quarterback and a running back get going? Can they get anything done on that side of the football consistently? And then the last team I want to talk about is Missouri, because I'm a Missouri fan, but also the constant need for people to get into the comments and say, Missouri is just there to prop up the SEC. Missouri has been preseason ranked very few times in its time in the SEC. Missouri is not the team that gets into the rankings to prop up the SEC. If you want to accuse other SEC teams of getting that, you totally can. I think that's very fair that you can say ESPN sometimes juices the polls to make sure that SEC teams are playing other ranked teams. Missouri is not that team. They're consistently a riser in the rankings versus a faller. And for Missouri lost a lot on the defense, but their defense has consistently been decent, and they have good coaches over there. Their running backs are going to be great. We'll see how Ahmad Hardy continues to rehabilitate after his brutal offseason injury due to a shooting.
Did you see? I'm sorry, hold on. Did you see his comments when somebody asked him, "What did this shooting teach you?" He said, "It taught me that I can get more social media followers."
Oh, Ahmad, I love that guy. I think the question with Missouri has been for the last couple of years is the quarterback play going to be there? Bo Prabula didn't end up being the guy that Mizzou fans thought he was going to be. But if you have a run game, you have a good offensive line, you have some talented young receivers, you got a big receiver transfer. I think the question is, once again, can Austin Simmons be the guy? If Austin Simmons is able to be a dynamic quarterback for Missouri, who Missouri brought in a new offensive coordinator, Missouri brought in a new quarterback coach.
He said,
proven guys that have done it.
This was his quote. He said, "I appreciate everybody's support, wishing me to get back on the field and things like that. Being here since I got shot, my recovery journey, I appreciate them being here. I think I done gained 3,000 to 5,000 fans on Instagram. They've been coming in. A lot of people have been texting me, checking up on me, things like that. I appreciate the support."
Love it. And listen, like I was saying, I think Mizzou's done a lot of things to improve the quarterback position. And if the quarterback can get going, there's no reason why the Missouri Tigers can't. I don't know if they're going to be, quite compete with the top of the SEC. But in terms of sliding into that 5th, 6th spot, competing for that 12th place in the playoff and being a top 25 team, I think that's totally fair. And I don't really understand the hate that they constantly get when there's other teams in this poll that also commit the same crimes. This is also a coach's poll. The reaction to this, where people were saying, "Oh, this is just them propping up certain conferences," this is a coach's poll.
It's
The
guys
coaches voted on
it's
this.
guys who know football.
Yeah. So the complaint. Listen, when the ESPN releases their rankings, with ESPN having the SEC rights, and you would complain about that, go for it. This is a coach's poll. Deal with it. This is what they think preseason.
So the other thing that me being a group of 6 guy, no group of 6 team ranked in the preseason coaches poll. The highest ranked group of 6 team is Boise State, coming in around 33. No, I'm sorry, around at 36. UNLV, which my school comes in at number 38, getting 17 votes. Memphis, who UNLV plays week 0, they got 9 votes, coming in at 44. James Madison got some votes as well at 48. New Mexico, Western Michigan, Navy, San Diego State, Jacksonville State, and Hawaii all got some votes as well. So there is some love early preseason for the group of 6. So it's just a matter of which group of 6, and from my perspective, which group of 6 team can make or break their seasons early. I mean, you have just me being a UNLV fan, you have number 38 versus number 41 week 0 in UNLV and Memphis, which is a massive game for the group of 6 CFP spot. Then you have if you prolong that, you have Hawaii playing Stanford, Hawaii was receiving votes. And then the following week, week 1, you have Hawaii playing UNLV. So you have a bunch of big implication games for the group of 6 early, and that's going to be reflected in these rankings. Like you said, the Power 4 is going to get their love, and they always will. But some of these are going to win early, they're going to lose early, they'll rise, they'll fall. But which group of 6 team? That's obviously there were a bunch of them in the receiving votes. Which group of 6 team is really going to take off and be able to, take kind of that JMU Boise State mentality from the last couple of years and take the rankings by stranglehold and make their mark. I think that's going to be fun to watch too. And I think in my opinion, putting more eyes and more rankings like this on the group of 6, getting them involved in this early like they are, not knowing which really team's going to take off. Maybe you'll have somebody randomly watching an important UNLV Memphis game week 0 because just for a casual, that game's on national TV, that game's on Fox. So it's like, okay, now you got a high level game. Like when UNLV plays Cal week 4, UNLV may be ranked at that point, playing an ACC school. There's going to be eyeballs on that game because UNLV is playing a school like that. So I like it from that perspective too. You kind of get to see what schools are going to take off, which ones they're not. Having the SEC, everyone's going to say, like you said, the SEC bias in the top 25 or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's dudes who know football. Dan Mullen, former SEC coach, he's getting his flowers. Is he going to be able to take off and take his team into the CFP like everyone thinks they can be? And I will say, if Jackson Arnold, the double SEC cast-off, can get UNLV into the top 25 and in national conversation talk about the narrative that would change for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I do love the group of 5 teams got votes. I think that shows a lot about the coaches. I understand because the coaches are voting based on other coaching staff they know, who they know and enjoy and respect and know what they bring to their programs, and then they're voting off of talent that they see. None of it's play on the field yet because they don't really know the play on the field yet. So I think this is a perfectly respectable poll. I think you're absolutely right that I'm very glad that there are a group of 6 teams that are being considered there, and it shows that the coaches are willing to look at those teams and scout them because they know that 1 or 2 of them are going to be in the playoff, and that's another good byproduct of this 12-team playoff is it's forced these coaches to genuinely look at those teams and care about those teams and care about those matchups.
One of the things I meant to ask you was, so I obviously my other platform, I cover UNLV, and I went to Mountain West Media Days, and I had a chance to do a sit down with Dan Mullen, and I asked Dan Mullen, I said, what goes into your scheduling and how you look at it? He goes, we called Power 4 schools, they won't play us.
Yeah,
and
because it's only a detriment to their possible 12-team playoff.
And he was like, he was like, it was hard to get the Memphis game scheduled. We called, I heard reports that, they called USC, they called Rutgers, they called schools like that, and they wouldn't play UNLV. So it's like, okay, these schools are shying away from, games like that. So how do you schedule? So I asked him how he scheduled, and he goes, I want to schedule the top G6, and I want to schedule a Power 4, whether it's at a level like Cal, or if it's like how they play. Like, you look at their schedule next for 2027, they play ASU, USC, James Madison, and North Texas and Vegas. 2 top G6s and 2 Power 4s. Then it's like, what if UNLV steals that game next year? That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
Like that a UNLV win boosts their resume completely. USC or ASU losing to UNLV shatters their resume for the whole season.
Absolutely. And that's why I think that's clearly why I think everyone knows why Power 4 teams will schedule. I think the interesting thing it's going to develop into is what group of 6 teams at the top of the group of 6 eventually is like, maybe we're going to shy away from playing UNLV because we'd rather avoid them, play a couple group of 6 worse teams, and then play our one Power 4 team because we don't want to lose those games.
Well,
early in the season.
I'll use the example. I asked San Jose State. They played Texas last year for the money games. They played Texas last year. They play USC this year. I asked him, how does your scheduling? I used UNLV's as an example. I was like, how do you schedule? And he goes, our program doesn't have money like these other schools. We need the money. We need the $1 million from that game. That goes a long way with our program. And then, like, you're a big North Dakota State fan. You followed them forever.
I enjoy
I
them.
asked Pulisic the same question. He goes, well, being an FCS, we always want to keep an FCS game, as we move up, as a respect to the FCS. But he's like, but yeah, maybe down the road we'll schedule. We don't think a Power 4 will play us, but we want to schedule like Conference USA and schools like that. So it's like, so now you think about it, it's like, oh, well, nobody wants to play them because they beat schools like that before, but it's also, you kind of don't want to play them anymore either because now you can want to go undefeated, like you just said.
Yeah, you don't want to run the risk of because you're expected to win that game, and if you don't, it's kills your season. At least
I'm talking about what you just said. Like, oh, these schools won't play UNLV. The other G6 schools, it's like, well, they want to play Sunbelt and Conference USA teams instead because they know that can be a win and get them undefeated to make their resume look better.
Absolutely. So that's what we had with the poll. That was my thoughts on the poll. I enjoy coaches' polls because I actually think it's until late in the season, until at least week 7. I think it's probably a more accurate poll. So I enjoy this. I think a lot of it's right. I think we'll obviously see risers and fallers. It's a preseason poll, but it's what we have to talk about right now. Speaking of lower level college football, let's have the most fun conversation we're going to have in this episode.
Yeah.
We're buying Akron season tickets, right?
Oh, 100%. I'll buy 2 or 3. I want my chance to be able to be there. So what Sam is referencing is, if you don't know, Akron put up this promotion. They're selling season tickets for $75 a ticket. And what they're doing is they play FCS Robert Morris week 1. And what they're doing is they're going to have a drawing. If you win a drawing or lottery or whatever it is, and you're selected, you get to be the offensive coordinator for their opening series of the season. Everybody is talking about it. You mentioned Big Cat and them talked about it.
Big Cat and PFT are buying tickets. PFT talked to Aaron Foster on macrodosing. Aaron Foster is like, oh, a sweet tickets, season tickets are $135. Like,
why not?
Why not? The tickets aren't very expensive. Listen, Akron apparently isn't going to be a very good team. Caveat to this, I'm sure that it's going to be more of, okay, we have a run. We're going to do a run play. Which one of these 3 run plays would you like to run? And they're not going to let them just truly, because if you let one of these sickos draw up a first drive, we're going to get a shark wheel. We're going to
they're
fake punt.
They're gonna pull their playbook from NCAA 27 and pick the top 20 plays and be like, all right, we're running five wide vert for play 1, and then I'm gonna do a halfback direct snap game 2, play 2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be. Listen, but here's the other fun part of this, and the other fun thing, and slightly sad thing that'll happen is if they score on this drive. Say the worst part of this happens. Robert Morris sees this, and they're gonna put this up in their locker room. They say they think we're so bad that they're gonna let a fan call the first drive. They're never going to talk about the other thing where it's not really going to be a fan calling up the first drive. It's going to be, they're going to be like, no, they're letting a fan drop this entire first drive. They're not touching this at all. They're going to let a fan call the plays. You boys, you guys better be ready to get out there. We're going to take it to them. If they score on this first scripted drive, but they end up losing this game like 7-10.
So they said that
man,
we're gonna call that person like an NFL draft style and let them know they got selected. Then we'll find time for them to come to campus where they'll meet and sit down with Coach Joe Moorhead. He'll run through what plays he would normally call in the opening drive and then figure out what they want to do with them.
Still, here's the thing: if they lose this game 7-10 and they score on the first drive, the rest of the season, at least for a week,
and the fan gets to sit in the coach's box with these other coaches.
Oh, God, this is so great. But if they lose this, they're gonna be clowning this guy and be like, a fan called a better first drive than you.
So I will ask you this. One, if you're a sports book, are you sports books take bets on drives for games? If you're a sports book, do you take action on this? Because you're gonna get heavy action all over the place on this if you do this.
I think due to the, I'm sure, severe caveats that are going to be, this is Joel Moorhead's first drive. You're going to just say, "Oh, I want to run this to the left," or I want to run this run. I think they might. I think there's going to be a lot of people betting on it. And you know what? I think this game is going to be watched. This game is going to be heavily watched. The first 2 minutes of this game are going to be watched by 20 million people, and then the rest of the game won't be watched at all. But the first 2 minutes of this game are going to be, people are going to be locked in. I will be.
It's not even on TV. It's on ESPN Plus. So how many ESPN's going to get a bump of people buying ESPN Plus just so they can watch this?
I guess I'm buying ESPN Plus for a month. Oh no. I mean, listen. This is crazy. This is a crazy promotion. It's certainly done. It's going to sell season tickets, and I'm very excited to see who gets it because it's going to be really, really funny if it's somebody, either a celebrity or
I really hope it's not a celebrity though. I want a random person from North Dakota to go and call a play.
I want Pee Wee for that guy that called into Nick Saban's Alabama weekly radio show. I want Pee Wee to be like I want Pee Wee to go into the coaching office and be like, "What do we got on the front line, boys? What kind of size are we talking about?" And talking about different things they can do with the offensive line. He was move the hogs up front around.
How bad is Akron?
Oh, it's so funny.
Like, how bad are they supposed to be?
If this is the promotion, I can't imagine they're expected to be very good.
Hold on.
I can't get it out of my head. While you look this up, I can't get it out of my head how bad this would be if they would give Robert Morris bulletin board material, lose to FCS Robert Morris, and still score on the first drive and be told that a random guy or girl from outside the program is a better play caller for a week. I can't. It would be so bad.
Akron's win total is 4.5.
Oh man. It's so funny. Now,
but I feel bad in a sense. I feel bad for the players because they're gonna sell out probably all these season tickets, and then they're gonna have no fans at the game whatsoever.
No, I'm telling you right now, Big Cat is not for the 30 season tickets of Big Cat's buying. Big Cat might because he's Big Cat show up to one Akron game just to support the fellas. But I don't know.
What was his offense? Was it Chubbs? What was his offensive coordinator's name?
Coach Doug's.
Yeah, Doug's
or whatever, right?
I want him to show up dressed like that in the press box, calling the call play.
There's a real life guy that looks like Coach Doug's that I think he got inspired by. Bring him in it. That would be awesome if he showed up. Yeah, I do want them to show. I need them to show up in full coach's outfit. I want a headset on. I want everything about it. And listen, I think the coaches and the quarterbacks are still going to be allowed to audible out of things. I kind of wish that they'd be allowed to be like, I want to audible out.
You cycle
I see something
this
here.
This is the play you're going to run, but here's my audible running if you want to run it.
yeah. The audible option is for this. Now, what would be even better if Robert Morris would start saying, we're going to do even cheaper season tickets, $20 season tickets for Robert Morris games. You get to call the first defensive script. And pit two random guys against each other and just see what happens.
Wasn't there like an indoor football league a couple years ago that like Johnny Manziel and Josh Gordon played in, where it was a fan controlled game, so the fans called the plays?
Oh, good Lord. I can't imagine what kind of sickos.
It was a professional 7-on-7 football league that operated from 2021 to 2022, and the fans called the plays. The league used an internet streaming service and was streamed on Twitch, and it had 2.1 million views in the playoffs for these games, and they let fans vote on and call plays.
That's awesome. What is I've talked about the worst thing that could happen. What's the greatest thing that could happen? Is the greatest thing that could happen
one play touchdown?
But even better, is the greatest thing that could happen a one play touchdown? But it's a one play touchdown where Joel Moorhead says, "Okay, this first play, if you actually really love football, if you have a trick play you'd like to drop for first down, go for it." And some guy runs a triple reverse and they house it. Oh, that'll be electric.
100% it would.
It'd be awesome. What a great, such a fun topic. We can move on. Let's do it. MLB trade deadline has came and went, and let's start off with the big gun. A big gun in multiple ways, because it's the ace of the league. It's Tarik Skubal, and Tarik Skubal is, of course, a Dodger. The haul that was received for Tarik Skubal to go to the Dodgers, a little underwhelming, especially considering the Yankees were expected to be in for Skubal, that the Brewers, if they wanted to go all in this year and have a lineup of the Miz and Skubal to lead their playoff rotation, the Cubs needed.
I know the Braves tried to get them too. Would still be Sale and Skubal.
The Braves, many other teams, and the haul wasn't very big, which has led to a lot of speculation. Speculation such as, we got a agreement we got to come to in the next year, and people are pretty pissed about how the Dodgers do business, but also these other owners are being kind of cheap, and they kind of want to continue being cheap, and this Skubal acquisition by the Dodgers gives even more fan and media caveats to the owners who could say, well, the Dodgers have built the Death Star. When an acquisition like this, they didn't really have to give up much. You didn't make them work for it. But it kind of appears that the other teams have decided, and the other owners have decided, well, we'll let them make this super team because we're going to get more favorable draw in the next agreement. Do you think that's what's going on? Because the owners do make decisions, but I'm kind of surprised that no GM was like, oh, we can outbid that.
Yeah, but it's also I know that I heard the Brewers offer was better, or at least I read it was. They offered an MLB controllable piece, and they offered 2 top prospects. I mean, they did get 2 top 100 prospects, but that's like the thing. Like, I know this is jumping ahead, but it's like the thing where the Red Sox got Rutschman, and people are saying that they overpaid to get Rutschman, but what do we really know about these prospects? Nothing is a for sure thing. Skubal was like a 10th round pick. that turned into something great.
You know nothing.
You know nothing about these.
Yeah.
So yeah, on paper, sure, they got screwed. It's just like, being a Red Sox fan, it's like when they traded Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. They got Verdugo, who was their number one prospect. They got, Connor Wong and Jeter Downs, who were supposed to be top 100 prospects in baseball. But, none of them panned out to be shit. I mean, and then Mookie went on to have the career what he's had with the Dodgers. But
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, it also came out that the Dodgers were one of the only teams he was willing to sign an extension with. So did the Tigers try to get more and other teams wouldn't do it because he wouldn't sign there? Is it?
But if he's leaving, why would that's my question, though. This is why the conspiracy theory
I think because the Dodgers don't care. They know if he walks, he may walk with a ring. He's going to get paid, and they still have the best, on paper, rotation in the league.
But I'm not. But this is why the conspiracy theory has some credence to me. Why did if the Brewers aren't planning to sign him to extension, like, or he's saying, they're one of the only teams that can afford extension, why the fuck do the Cubs care? Like, you still want to pay for him. You're trying to win now. Like, you'd still give up the amount that the Dodgers give up to have him, even if it's just for the next 6 months. That's my question. That's why, like, the conspiracy theory of the owners are trying to leverage this into continuing to, like, get support for what they're going to want out of this next agreement. Because I still don't understand, even if he's going to go to the Dodgers eventually, because they're the only ones that are going to be willing to pay him. Who cares? Why do the Tigers care where he goes? Why would you not just take the best deal?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what the Tigers were doing or what they were thinking, but it's weird too, because like even if he wasn't going to resign, it's kind of like, do you think and this is the baseball question, not like an ownership question. Do you think that they kind of viewed it as the Angels fucked up the Ohtani situation and he flopped and they didn't make the playoffs and they got nothing back? They felt inclined to trade him.
I know that I'm sure that the Tigers felt inclined to trade him. The plan was, if they weren't good, if they weren't where they wanted to be, they were going to trade him. But if you're going to do that, you still would take the biggest haul, because you care about your organization, not the Dodgers, and not your owner wanting to just have a better chance of getting a favorable agreement.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there is something more to this, and maybe they know a salary cap's coming, and the Dodgers are going to have to dump all these players, and they know that it may be a way to force a lockout to make the Dodgers do it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's a way to force a lockout, but it also continues to add to the owner's narrative of, oh, the Dodgers are able to spend more than us. The other owners in the MLB are making money. They're not spending it quite the same. Listen, I'm not expecting, the Kansas City Royals or the Cardinals or the Minnesota Twins to spend as much as the Dodgers, but those owners are saving more money and earning more money than you think. And they're going to use this narrative to say, oh, well, we're going to want a hard salary cap, when both a salary cap and a salary floor should be implemented. And I think they're using this narrative to say, well, we need a salary cap in order to continue, so they don't have to spend as much, but the Dodgers can't spend as much, when the actual solution would be the Dodgers can't spend as much, but also you have to spend money to make your team competitive. You can't just sit idly by and just be comfortable making money. If you're a sports owner, you have to be competitive as well. And it seems like a lot of owners, especially in baseball, don't really want to be competitive. They want to field the team, and they want to make the money that they're going to make from the TV deal, and they're going to make from everything else, and that they're content with that. And kind of kudos to the Dodgers that they aren't willing. They're willing to be competitive, and they want to build the best team. I'm honestly kind of tired of being mad at the Dodgers. I wish my team did that.
I mean, being a Red Sox fan, as much as you hated the Yankees doing it, I mean, you had to respect it because they kept going for it and been building off of what was homegrown. I think the difference between what the Dodgers are doing and what the Yankees did, where the Yankees built around a lot of homegrown guys. The Dodgers is You want to play here? Cool. Come. We're paying you most. You want to
Cool.
come here? Cool. We're getting you. We don't care about prospects. We're trading you. It's it's kind of the same thing of like, people get pissed off at the Golden Knights for not keeping anything, but they just want to win. And it's the same mentality that the Dodgers have. They just want to win. They want to win, and they want to win now, and they want to be the best team, fill that stadium, and get rings and dominate. And
and I can't blame them for that. That's how you should run a team. And my fear is that the owners are attempting to continue to use the Dodgers as a thing they can point to, so that they can implement a salary cap, but not implement anything that prevents these smaller market or these other owners that aren't even in smaller markets, but that are just cheap. They're just cheap. They don't want to invest in their team. Now, listen, I don't want every team. I'm not expecting the Cardinals to be the Dodgers or the Yankees and buy every single position anytime they need it and have 4 aces in the rotation. I don't need that. So I do think a salary cap is fair, because no, a team shouldn't be able to have literally 4 aces in the rotation and arguably the best player at every single position on the roster, or top 5 player at every position on the roster. But I do want the Cardinals to, if in 2 or 3 years when this team is young, this young team is developed, if they need to start an ace to and a second pitcher, to go for it instead of just selling, instead of just not caring, instead of just saying, we did the best we can, we're going to flame out in the playoffs because we don't have the pitching. You do want teams, you need both. And my fear is that the owners are going to say, we don't want to do both. We only want to punish the Dodgers, which isn't fair.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to implement a salary cap, you got to put in a floor as well, because you can't just let these teams, kind of like how hockey has it. Hockey's cap. I mean, hockey players aren't paid the same as baseball players, obviously, but I think the one good thing that the hockey NHL does is they don't let these teams just sell all their players and have bottom of the barrel pay for these guys. You have to have a salary floor that you have to hit as a minimum, but you also have you're not going to let teams be spend at free will as well. So I think there is some other aspects that they can look at, but I mean, it's also, I think what pisses these owners off more is like Shohei's only making $1 million this year, because
that's also
all of
something
his money
that's very
all of his
fair.
money is deferred. So it's like, okay, now they want to get rid of deferrals, but if you implement a salary cap, he's only making $1 million.
Yeah. I think getting rid of the deferrals would also help is also something that should be considered. So now that we've had our piece on Skubal going there and the other things, let's just talk about the trade deadline in general. The biggest winners, probably the Dodgers. Obviously, they get another ace to lead their rotation. If that rotation is healthy,
here's my question: Is Skubal their number one over Yamamoto?
Yeah. Does it matter?
I'm not saying it matters. I'm not saying it matters, but I'm saying, like, you have Yamamoto pitch game 1, game 5, game 7 last year because he probably had to. Is he the number one, like, in that rotation? I don't think so. I think he's the number 2. I think it's if they're healthy, I think it's Yamamoto, and then I think it's Skubal, and then probably Glasnow. Then Snell is your number 4.
Yeah. If the Dodgers are healthy, do you think they even need to do this?
I think there's less inclination for them to do it, knowing they can get them in the offseason. But I think if you can do
it for this price, who cares?
Well, and think about it too. If they let Ohtani pitch again, Ohtani's your number 5 starter.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. The Chicago Cubs. The Cubs lost all their pitching earlier in the season, and they added 4 pitchers. So they did exactly what they needed to. Once again, surprised that they weren't higher in the Skubal, but as we talked about, maybe that wasn't even an option.
I feel like the Cubs did what they needed to do. They needed the depth in pitching. They would have been great for them to get Skubal. Of course, it's Tarik Skubal, but they added 4 rotational starters or rotational pieces that even if any of these guys come back from being injured, that now you have a deeper rotation that they may not have had all season. Now, in my opinion, could they have added another bat? I think they needed to, but
yeah, but their bats are starting to come on a little bit better, and PCA is on a heater right now. As much as that hurts me to say,
you have to think
is.
Bregman's bat turns around eventually.
Yeah, and you have to hope at least it comes on at the right time.
The best team in baseball added Adley Rutschman.
Yeah, the hottest team in baseball. Yeah, they did. The Red Sox did. Go ahead, go on your Red Sox. How good they did.
I think they've been missing a catching piece since they got rid of Veritek, or Veritek retired, and they had never had the consistency behind the plate. And I don't think they overpaid like people say they did, because like I've said, you never know how these prospects are going to turn out. The one trade that the Red Sox did make was, I was surprised that they flipped Marcelo Meyer for a reliever, giving up on the number 4 pick from 3 years ago, only playing 114 games for you. Granted, their bullpen needed that arm, but he was untouchable in trade talks in the offseason. His value declined that much. I was kind of surprised that they kind of just shipped him off to San Francisco. But I think the Adley piece, they traded him knowing that they could re-sign him. I think this was a John Henry move. Like, okay, this team is hot. This team has the full city behind them right now. They have arguably the greatest turnaround in baseball history going on right on the heater they're on right now, going from 14 games under to now they're 14 games under to 12 games over in 30 games.
I told you signed all those Cardinals players, and they brought that little bit of, oh, it's July and we're 10 games under. Let's go on a 30-game win streak to you.
But I mean, I think too, they didn't need to do much, because now there's talks. Roman Anthony's already his rehab's escalated quickly to now he's swinging, taking BP. Now there's talks. Crochet's already being stretched out to where he's throwing again. He may not. They said he may not come back as a starter, but you add Garrett Crochet to your bullpen, that's a high leverage arm. You could go Crochet then Chapman at the very end.
Yeah,
I mean,
great setup.
I think they set themselves up. I mean, they're tied with the Yankees in the loss column now. They're 5 back of Tampa. They're coming for that division. And I think if you have to, the way that the AL is right now, if you have to go through Fenway Park with the way this team is playing, good luck trying to do that, because I don't know if there's a team in the AL that can beat them right now. And I will say this: if they don't retain Chad Tracy, they are stupid. At least give him another season, because the job that he's done since they fired Alex Cora to turn this team around has been absolutely incredible. But it's funny. So we talk about the prospects in these deals. The Red Sox gave up 5 players for Adley Rutschman. Their number 2 prospect, who was a top 30 in baseball. Their number 4 prospect, 2 of their other top 10, another top 10 prospect, and then they gave up their starting catcher Carlos Narvaez. I think that they knew that they had a shot to re-sign Rutschman. They're betting on Rutschman having his bat turn around. No, it's been down the last 2 years. He's been very injury plagued. If his bat can get back to anything like it was in the past, they have their long-term catcher all-star for the future, and I think that's what they're betting on. And I think Breslow's betting on that as well. It went from being, let's hoard these prospects, and now let's try to win this and ride this hot streak and win this now.
Yeah. Really interesting. The Padres don't sell, and they buy. They buy a bunch of bullpen arms. They kept Mason Miller. Okay, Padres, hey, listen, you know what? I don't really understand why, but I appreciate that you're willing to die with the team. The Yankees also miss out on Skubal. They get Luis Garcia, leads the NL in slugging percentage this year. So you're hoping that he can come in and add even more damage to that lineup, which I watched Yankees Cardinals Monday, 10 home runs in that game. Cardinals ended up with a big win. all across the board. They don't have any health though. They don't have Judge. They don't have who else they're missing? They're missing they're missing Garrett Cole still. The Yankees.
Garrett Cole's back. They're missing
Garrett Cole's
Judge,
back.
Bellinger.
Bellinger.
I think they're missing another bat as well.
They
sent Volpe down. They gave up on Volpe, sent him down to AAA. They sent Jason Dominguez down to AAA because he can't hit in the major leagues. It's just they're a mess, and I think that if their slide, I mean, I know health has been a big reason, but if their slide continues, I don't see how Heliot Ramos and Luis Garcia really moved the needle for them. They really needed another starter, and they really needed some bullpen help. They need to get healthy, which,
that's our main thing right now.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to think that if they continue this slide, that, how hot is Aaron Boone's seat going to get at this point?
Oh, hot as always. And their GM saying, "Yeah, we didn't get Skubal, but getting these guys back is just as good as a big trade." All right, hey, whatever. Tampa Bay Rays signed Freddie Peralta, right?
Wait, hold on. But just speaking on the Cashman and the GM real quick, it's crazy to think that once the luxury tax was implemented in baseball, and not the salary cap, but they implemented the luxury tax, and the thresholds, the Yankees have not broken that threshold and won a World Series. They stopped signing the players like they did. They don't act like how the Dodgers act now. They just completely relied on the homegrown. And no offense, it kind of sucks because being a Red Sox fan, that's what made you hate the Yankees, even more, was them going and buying and trading for every freaking good player, and they just don't do it anymore. And it's like, at what point does the Steinbrenners just be like, okay, is this how we want to play, or they ever going to turn that around?
Yeah, I think part of me thinks that Steinbrenner's also wants. I don't know if he wants a salary cap, but he wants the Dodgers to be punished too, because he doesn't want to do what the Dodgers do to be competitive. Moving on to the Rays got Freddie Peralta. He hasn't had a great year, but that's another pitcher for him. They got Liam Hicks too from the Marlins. Really rough year for the Marlins. Man, the drop off! I didn't realize how bad the drop off was for Cal Raleigh this year. Really bad.
Yeah, he had his Jeremy Lin year, and then he dropped down back to where he normally is, but it's below. People are trying to blame that it was because he missed spring training to go play in the WBC, and then did get on the field in the WBC. So it was like, whatever. You're having a horrible year, one way or another.
Yeah. I think the Cardinals. I'll go on my little Cardinals minute. The Cardinals did exactly what they needed to do. Cardinals have had a really good season. They are one game under 500 right now. With the youngest team in baseball, they have a lot of really quality young guys that are starting to kind of pop up. They've rebuilt the farm. They made good trades. They kind of fleeced the Brewers. They get prospects Frias and Ragsdale from the Brewers. Like what we talked about with prospects, we don't know if they're going to turn out, but you get those two high level prospects for Dustin May and Jojo Romero, who both were going to be without a contract in this next offseason. So you give up two guys that you had no control over to the Brewers for two of their top prospects, which I think is a really, really good move. You have you did lose Lars Nootbaar. You gave him up for a prospect pitcher from the Diamondbacks. Sad to see Lars go. Really good guy. Hope he gets treated well there. He was really good player. I really enjoy him. But a guy that didn't quite fit their timeline and quite fit what they wanted to do right now, and you get a good prospect for him, and keep seeing how Jordan Walker and JJ Weatherholt continue to develop, keep rebuilding the farm, and see where it goes from now. We need young pitchers to develop. We need them to enter this rotation and be good. Because that's their biggest struggle is they can't pitch, and they just gave up Jojo Romero, their setup man. Really surprised that there was no Riley O'Brien. No one picked him up and settled and wanted him to be their closer, or at least be a bullpen arm for them. So kind of strange to not see him go anywhere. That's kind of one of the players I thought was going to go somewhere. Mike's back. You good?
Yeah, my computer died.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Talking about the Cardinals, I think that they gave up 2 players that they weren't going to have on contracts for the next season and got 2 young prospects from the Brewers. You give up Bar for a pitching prospect that looks pretty good. You continue to rebuild the farm. You still have Walker and Weatherholt having pretty good seasons. Walker's bat hasn't been great as of late, but Weatherholt's still really solid, and really we've rebuilt the farm, really intriguing. We need a couple pitchers to pan out of all these pitching prospects we've gotten in these trades. I need a couple of them to start pitching well, but did what they need to do. Were you also kind of surprised that Riley O'Brien wasn't in more trade talks?
I think he was. I think the one theme that you noticed about this whole thing was the controllable pieces were commanding a ton. So, he has a couple years of control left. Like, for example, the Angels not unloading Zach Neto because their asking price was so high because he has so many years of control. I think you see that with those guys who had those years of control, they weren't going to, they were probably very hard to move. But I
Yeah.
think he's a good foundational piece for them to keep for the future. That's for sure.
No, yeah, I don't disagree. I just was kind of surprised that he's had a really good year as a closer that no one was. I didn't hear any even like talks about him, so that kind of surprised me. I think the Orioles are a loser here. I mean, you lose Taylor Ward, you lose Rutschman. The Orioles didn't have a good season and they lost for it. I mean, this is what happens. This is what has happened to the Orioles. The Orioles and the Mets. The Mets didn't sell quite as much as the Orioles did, but you lose those pieces, and that's a tough place to be for the Orioles. The Brewers got desperate. They didn't get Skubal, and they pick up Dustin May and Jojo Romero. Listen, Jojo's not a horrible setup guy for like the 7th. Dustin May's had a pretty good year starting, but
to be fair, I don't know if it's a desperate move because the way that they turn around pitching is just insane. And if anybody's going to be able to fit, I mean, Dustin May was having a decent season, but if anybody was going to be able to fix Dustin May, it's going to be the Brewers.
Yeah. And listen, he's had a decent season, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's very impactful for them and helps them out a lot. But man, I just don't think that they didn't go all in. But on Skubal, and that's just really who I thought should have went, because this team is good, and no matter who gets injured, no matter who's gone, no matter who's not playing, they just win games, man. The Tigers lose Skubal.
His debut was today.
Yeah.
With the Brewers. He 6 innings, 3 hits, 2 runs, 97 pitches.
Looked really good.
But the piggyback on your point, though, I think that the Brewers' problem is they don't have enough power in their lineup to win games in the playoffs. And until I think their pitching is always going to carry them. But, at some point, they need to add a major bat that can help their lineup. Is that going to be Cheerio in the future? Maybe. But I think that until they realize that they need a power, I think they're always going to struggle, especially when they get deeper into the playoffs.
True. I don't disagree. And you're trying to find a way to beat the Dodgers just to get to the World Series. Both the Cubs and the Brewers are trying to figure out how they're even supposed to do that. Tigers, didn't have a playoff team on their hands, and they traded Skubal for future assets, but they didn't get the most out of them that I think they should have, and I think that's a really, really big mistake for the future of the Tigers. I know you talked a lot about the Red Sox. Does a part of you, I know it's really fun to get Rutschman and to get Meyer. Do you are you a little worried about, with the timeline of your team and who you have on the team, giving up 3 of your top 5 prospects?
No, I'm not, because
really,
they have control. All their major prospects that they wanted to keep, they've signed long term. Christian Campbell will be back up with this team at some point. He's been hitting pretty well in AAA, but he signed for another 7 seasons. Roman Anthony signed his 8-year extension last year. Marcelo Meyer was like the one piece that was a question mark. They've been able to develop pitching really well. They traded prospect for prospect to get Jake Bennett, who's been in their rotation. Connolly Early wasn't a highly touted draft prospect that they turned into a good player. Same thing with Peyton Tolley. So they've been able to hit and develop on these later pieces in the draft. So I trust the pitching, system that they have. And that was the thing too. Ianson was somebody they drafted last year. So they
Yeah.
saw enough. They saw enough where they felt comfortable trading him. Their number one prospect right now is Franklin Arias. He is on an absolute tear playing in AAA. I would not be surprised if he's up soon. They compare him. I mean, they've been comparing him to when Xander Bogaerts came up. So if he
Not a
could
bad
beat
comp.
any piece of Xander, that's a reliable thing. So
Okay.
I'm not worried about it. I'm a being a Boston sports fan. You don't want prospects. You want parades.
Yeah.
And that's what the last couple years has been hard to watch because it's like 2021. You get there with the ending basically of Evaldi and Bogarts and the last year of JD Martinez, like that era. You get to the ALCS, you don't get over the hump. Then you start, they leave. You start bringing up these prospects. 22, okay, almost there. Finish under 500. 23, you miss the playoffs again. Then you get to you make the playoffs in 23. 24, you miss the playoffs. 25, you make the playoffs with all of these young pieces. And now it's all these young pieces that they didn't trade any of these young pieces other than arguably Marcelo Meyer.
Yeah.
And you still have, Roman Anthony, who was the number one prospect in baseball. You have Arias, who's coming, I think he's number 6 or number 7 in the top 100. You have Christian Campbell, who was a top 10 prospect, and he just really faltered under Alex Cora last year.
Mm-hmm.
So
All right.
I think you have and then obviously, Cedar Rafael is 26 years old. Wilyer Abreu was a very low touted prospect from the Astros who they got in a trade for Christian Vasquez, I think 2 or 3 years ago, that really blossomed into the Gold Glove right fielder. So and then you throwing in the veterans that they have with like Wilson Contreras, and I think that they're going to be fine. I think that
Okay.
they still have a good long-term outlook, but they also know that they need guys like Crochet. They need the superstar like Wilson, Wilson Contreras can be. They need guys like an Adley Rutschman. You need the mix of the young and the old, kind of like how the Dodgers have done it. They've done well. Their younger guys who they brought up have really thrived, like Pajes and all of that, because they have the older guys around them.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's a question to ask. The Braves really didn't do much as a team that's leading the NL East. Kind of interesting. Another team that could have been more in on Skubal. And then the Phillies. The Phillies, they add Luis Ariz. Good bat. But they're playing.
I think the most interesting thing was moving Harper to the outfield.
The entire defensive scheme switches for the Phillies now. So what it looks like is they're moving. So Ariz is going to play second. Bryson Stott is going to play third. Bohm is going to be at first, and Bryce is going to be the outfield. He hasn't played there since 2022, and as ESPN is saying, he wasn't very good there when he was out there. They give up their defensive.
Didn't he have Tommy John that last year or two? Like he had Tommy John,
Maybe,
and then
yeah.
he converted to DH, and then that's why he ended up playing first base because his elbow, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, still, he hasn't played there in a while. Bryson Stott apparently hasn't played much third base in his career. So they're making themselves worse defensively. Yeah, they get another bat, but you make yourself worse defensively and all over. They could have used a starting pitcher as well. That's kind of the theme of the trade deadline every year. Everyone wants a starting pitcher. Everyone wants a closer.
But I think that kind of goes back to what we talked about in our last episode before the trade deadline of this year the AL being as bad as it is and the NL being as tight as it is, there weren't very many sellers.
No.
So it was really a seller's market.
And not a lot of, like you talked about earlier, there wasn't a lot of guys that were not under contract either.
Yeah, so it's also, if you want a controllable piece, for example, the Red Sox were in real deep talks to try to get Neto, and they wanted Franklin Arias and other prospects. It's like, are you
Yeah.
willing to give up your number one prospect, who's a top 10 in baseball, to get a shortstop who may or may not be able to handle Fenway Park?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
who
No,
knows? Who
I think
so
that's fair.
so like I that's why I think like I'm pissed. I'm not pissed that Skubal went to the Dodgers. It makes sense, but I also feel like that's why these other teams didn't overpay
And
either.
didn't get desperate after Skubal wasn't theirs to sign a guy that they wouldn't have, you know, that wouldn't either resign or that wouldn't be what they wanted. I'm concerned about the Phillies defense. If you're going to move three guys into positions they're not comfortable with, especially Bryson Stott at third in the hot corner. I mean, he's not a bad defender, but man, that's
That's something I don't get, is like, don't go trade for players that aren't gonna fit
at all.
where you're trying to. It's kind of like when the Red Sox traded for Schwarber back in 2021. You had JD Martinez as your DH. Where are you gonna play Schwarber? So then
Exactly.
they tried to play Schwarber at first, and it went fine. But it's like, you're, like you said, you're shifting your whole defensive alignment, putting a guy who'd never played out of position,
Yeah.
asking him to play a position. And yeah,
Yeah.
you anybody would love Kyle Schwarber's bat in their lineup, but it's also
Hmm.
like, what is the risk you're trying to take with that?
Yeah. And I mean that could defensively listen. Defense gets overshadowed a ton in sports, but especially baseball. It could hurt them. It really can.
And arguably, it's like, I mean, and you're not wrong, because arguably that defense cost the Yankees the World Series against Dodgers.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. 100% did. The White Sox are listed as a loser. I don't really see them as a loser for not really doing anything. They they're really they're kind of a shock team. They seem really young. They're ahead of schedule, so I don't really mind them not doing too much. And the Marlins, I mean, they're only a game and a half out of the wild card, but they trade Liam Hicks, and that's about it. So uh, I just don't, they didn't really do much when they could have done more. And yeah, they've had struggles, especially with, like we talked about, Cal Raleigh not being the MVP that he was last year, which they're really really needing him to be. Um, and yeah, at the end, the Skubal still went to the Dodgers, of course. So that's the big winners and losers. That's the teams I really thought to talk about. Was there anything else in the trade deadline that you found interesting, or anything else? And what do you see as the outlook of the MLB now that the trade deadline has passed and the dust has settled? I think the clear teams that are vying in the NL are obviously the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Cubs, and then the Braves didn't do much, but the Braves are still there.
Yeah, I think it's like the outlook. I think the teams that really wanted to invest, they did. The teams that really think they have a shot, the Padres bought pitching, thinking that, Machado and Tatis's bats are going to turn around. Maybe Bogarts' bats are going to turn around. They're betting on that. They were never going to be sellers. The Red Sox are buying the hot streak that they're on, trying to add a
Mm-hmm.
piece of like an Adley. The Yankees are betting on them getting healthy. There are teams that stood pat for a reason. I mean, but I think that it's going to be. I hope you guys enjoy baseball, because I don't think there's going to be much baseball next year.
No, I think there's a great chance. So we're going to be watching. We're going to be covering a whole lot of There's not even. Why couldn't they have done this when we at least had a World Cup or a Copa America and a Euros the next summer? Like, We're going to be covering a Gold Cup and WNBA on
Yeah.
this channel. Which no disrespect to the Gold Cup or the WNBA, but it's not quite the same as not having baseball until July 23rd or something. Um, and and the teams that it's going to affect are the teams at the top. The Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers. Them not getting that season. I'm more comfortable as a Cardinals fan with the young team, maybe not playing that season, but I'd like to see another season of baseball and these guys develop. And it's going to be really sad if JJ Weatherholt doesn't play for the second year of his career. But yeah, I think we're on a beeline to a
And I
lockout.
and like some of the teams too that, like, I don't really understood what the Rangers did, because they just they didn't sell, but they didn't buy, and they're just stuck at 500.
Yeah.
Like the Pirates actually bought for once, which is awesome to see. Buying a bunch of bullpen arms, that was great to see. So it's
Is it
cool to see.
gonna get them in the playoffs?
I hope so.
Huh. We'll see.
I would love to see Skeens pitch a playoff game.
I absolutely would too. But man, they got to do more work still. And I know the trade deadline isn't the exact time to do that, but they still got to improve in other ways too.
And one thing I wish, because all these other sports don't do it either, they should put the trade deadline at the halfway point. Stop putting it towards the end of the season.
It is weird that it's the beginning of August. I do agree, but
I mean,
feel like
they're 100 game. They were over 100 games in. Hockey does the same thing. Hockey does it like 60 games in. Put it at the halfway point.
doesn't NBA do that as well? It's later in the season too, right?
Yeah,
It's like after game like 57. That might be late.
it's in February typically, so it's after like the halfway point. That's
Yeah,
what I mean. I love the trade deadline. I think, but imagine like the Dodgers actually getting 80 games of Skubal. Not actually
yeah,
getting 10 or 15 starts from Skubal instead of 5. Or like in
yeah,
hockey, when hockey trade deadline happens, give me more than 20 games of a player before the playoffs.
yeah.
Like
And it feels like it's not a lot of time to like get that player into your system, into your team as much as it could be. But I also understand the point of like you don't know whether a lot of teams in every sport don't know whether they're going to be true buyers or sellers until maybe that 3/4 of the season rather than halfway. Like it would have been a really like what if the Red Sox had traded every a bunch of like had done Red Sox would have done things completely different if they'd had to do this in
and
early July.
Yeah, I know. That's also what makes it interesting is you miss out on a bunch of the end of season stuff that happens, like, or middle of the season teams going on heaters. But
Yeah,
I mean, it would make it more interesting. Like, give me a trade deadline, James Harden being moved, to give me 40 something games instead of 20.
yeah. I understand the sentiment. I just think I think the reasoning is in my head that teams, like especially baseball, you don't like could be a different team 25
Oh
games.
yeah, because they play so many.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's less of a thing in other sports, but I think like baseball especially, it's like we don't know if we're going to be buyers or sellers. We could have a completely horrible July and be sellers. I mean, you never know with
That's
that.
basically what happened with the Marlins. They were like 3 games above 500 and then lost like 15 out of 20, and they're like, "Yep, we're selling."
Yep, we're solid. Yep, of course. I don't have anything else to talk about tonight. That's the biggest things in sports that have been going on. We wanted to cover trade deadline. We covered trade deadline. Covered Pochettino. We covered some football. Um, that's all I have for tonight. Do you have anything else before we close this
No, I
out?
think we hit it all.
All right, perfect. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you all. Please like, please subscribe, please share it with your friends, your family. Um, we're gonna keep it rolling with this channel. We're gonna keep covering baseball. We got football starting real soon. We'll talk about some more preseason happenings. We also had our football show recorded the first episode.
Yep.
So
Dre
that's
and Mark, they did. I listened to it. If you haven't listened to the trap game, listen to the trap game. Dre and Mark, they did their
yep.
NFC win totals and predictions for the NFC today. Great stuff, great content from some great guys. Make sure you check them out. Make
Yeah,
sure you check out our
absolutely.
hoops after dark as well. Kind of quiet on the basketball front right now, but
A little bit. Yep.
we'll be back full swing once the summer stuff ends.
Yeah, absolutely. And like it's gonna be I'm intrigued by what's gonna happen in the NFL. I'm intrigued by what's gonna happen in the NBA. We're gonna get some hockey stuff starting soon. Starting before we know it too. So we'll keep covering all that on the various channels. So please like those. Please subscribe to those. Please keep supporting us, and we appreciate you all. And we'll see you on the next show.
See you
Thank you,
next time.
guys.